a great time. And hopefully next
And maybe even some of us older owners is to help. But I'm back.
Who done stepped in the game? At point blank range. Who done stepped in the game? At point blank range. Who done stepped in the game? Stepped in the game. Stepped in the game.
Who done stepped in the game? I'm gonna make this quick. There won't be any analogies to movies. There won't be any claims of attacks or anything like that. It'll be pretty straightforward. So this is all about a post that I made. And it sounds very similar to some other stuff that's being talked about in other YouTube videos. And apparently it's going back and forth with a lot of YouTubers now. The thing being, there's a lot of crying on social media with regards to Nintendo not having a Nintendo Direct in almost 6 months. While that's okay, great, people want a traditional Direct so they can find out about more games or find out what's upcoming and things of that nature. That's not the end all be all. And I really don't understand why they're upset and why it's such a big deal. I get it. I saw Mr. T's video. He was saying fans want to have more information and stuff like that. My post isn't really geared towards fans. It's geared toward the YouTuber that I know that drools about this all the time because they need something to talk about to get paid for. And that was kind of what I was talking about there. So my whole thing was y'all crying. Y'all steady want something to talk about. But at the same point in time, y'all are trying to force Nintendo to do something that you want to do. And they're completely different from you. They're not your family member. They don't really give a fuck about you because they're a business and they're going to do what they want to do. Now, so I won't be called a shill. Let's get a couple of assumptions out of the way. I've been a Nintendo fan as far back as 1985. So the history part is definitely taken care of as far as legacy with the company and knowing about the company and following the company because I've been a fan. There's a lot of things Nintendo's done that I didn't really approve of. Namely, releasing 3 consoles with extension ports that didn't do anything in the United States for the most part. And of course, you know, they've had their foray into online, which was either not altogether or doing what the competition was doing, or they were too ahead of their time and they said fuck it, because when they tried it back in the 80s, you know, nobody caught on to it. So all the other attempts that they tried for the N64 and the GameCube or whatever, nobody liked it. So they're like whatever. Yes, they have a console where you go online and it now costs 1/3 of the price of Xbox Live or PlayStation Network. And it doesn't do 100% of what PlayStation Network and Xbox Live do. I mean, yeah, sure. And I know that even if you pay proportionally, you should get those things. I don't really care about that because I'm the type of gamer where it's got to make the game more fun for me. I don't give a fuck about themes because that doesn't play a game better for me. That doesn't make a game more fun for me. I don't really care about the saves and all this other kind of stuff and all these other little features that makes your console like a desktop equivalent because I have a computer for that. I want to play a fucking game with a controller. So I don't really care whether or not a Nintendo console has X feature or another feature. The entire reason my channel even exists is because Nintendo is beat up on so much. They blindly ignore information that where Nintendo is actually ahead of the competition. So my channel pretty much for the most part started trending on that starting from the Wii U generation, where people didn't know, hey, you know, the Wii U does this and the other consoles don't. But y'all constantly trying to shit on the Wii U and vice versa. Same thing for Switch, which currently still has the most powerful CPU per core until these follow-on 9th generation consoles finally come from Sony and Microsoft to join Nintendo Switch in 9th generation. So that's the whole point of my channel. So obviously, yes, there are things Nintendo is not doing. Nobody is ignoring that. Nobody is running away from that. My thing is, play your games. That was the whole point of that tweet that I have. Nintendo does what the fuck they want to do. They'll do a direct every month 1 year. They'll do a direct every 2 months 1 year. They might go 1 year where they don't have one at all, or they just have one for E3, and that's it. We're coming from Wii U, where at some point they only had like one or two of the directs a year anyway. It's kind of not out of the norm. Nintendo announces stuff when they're ready, when they have stuff to show. And that's not a defense of them. That's an observation. You clearly see, you watch the directs and you're like, wow, they got stuff and they're showing gameplay. So the games are ready. Like, they're buildable. They're not, you watch a PlayStation trailer and it's nothing but CGI, and then for the next 3 years you don't see shit. It's stuff they're actively developing on. So if they went through all the directs that we've seen over the last 3 years, and now there's a lack of that, that means they're actively working on games, and the games that they're working on right now are not ready to show, for the most part. I mean, that would be the logical deduction that I would make. Now, I don't know about the rest of everything that Mr. T was complaining about, and other people on social media were complaining about, talking about shitting on fans and all this other kind of stuff. Fans are going to want a Nintendo Direct every day if you let them. If we're just going to talk about what the fans want. The fans want a new Mario game every day. They want a new Zelda game announced every day if they could get it. That's what they would do. Reality clashes with that. So what we have to do is understand reality, understand what Nintendo has been doing, regardless of whether you want to observe them or not for 1 or 2 years just because Switch just came out, or observe them for over 30 years for them actually being a corporation and making video games as a third party and a first party from the 70s to now. We cannot forget that at the same point in time, they make video games, and video games are not exactly easy to make, and nowadays they're not exactly hard to make with so much middleware around. Nintendo doesn't like to use other people's middleware for the most part. They like to use their own tools and SDKs they made with their own internal engineering team. That being said, unless you see an Unreal Engine 4 game, chances are Nintendo games are going to take a long time to make because they're building them from scratch. Now, I get it where if there are some news tubers out there, which would be kind of a conflict of interest, because if you're a news tuber, why would you bitch about other people crying for news when you yourself depend on it? So I get that that contradiction if that's what's being pointed out. But what I did not see in any of these conversations back and forth, or in these videos back and forth, was individual fans, subscribers and whatnot, being berated in their own stream or their own video. I don't think I've seen anything like that. Maybe I need to follow more. I don't know. I'm not watching other people's videos like that. Not too much if I don't have to. I'll catch a stream here and there, and I'll log in and say, hey, I support you guys. I sub, or I leave a donation or whatever, and then I leave. What I'm not going to do is sit here and follow the drama, if you will. I'm just voicing my current opinion based on what I see right now going back and forth. So I haven't seen a fan get hurt. I see that some fans will reply that aren't YouTubers or what have you, followers that will reply, say, hey, well, we should have certain things or what have you. Okay, that's fine, well and good. You can feel that way. That's great. The majority of my comments specifically describe thirsty YouTuber observations, not fans. Fans need to stop tripping why these fans want. No, because I know what fans are going to want. Like I said before, they're going to want a Mario game announced every day, and they're going to want a Zelda game announced every day for the most part. Hell, they want a Mario game released every day if they can have it. So I get that. I get that part. Yes, Nintendo is in a situation where, yes, they have they're in a situation where they have a crux. They could be the killing blow to these consoles that are just now joining 9th gen before they get started. But Nintendo isn't trying to compete with them like that. And I hear a lot of comments saying, "Oh, you're ignoring it. They are competing with them." Blah blah blah. Like, Nintendo has already stated that their competition is far greater and exceeds Sony and Microsoft. They're not worried about what the fuck they're doing. They're worried about what Apple's doing. They were heavily looking at what Google Stadia and all that other shit was doing. They're looking at everything that consumes your time. They want to know how they can fit a wedge in to whatever it is you do every day, to where you can get some of their product in and you're able to play that during the time. They're not even going to try to compete. They're not going to sit there and say, hey, well, we want this heavy story-driven game that has 900 hours of video and audio and whatnot, and it's so intriguing, and here come the movie credits and all this, and please give us an Oscar award even though we're playable and nobody on the Academy is even going to recognize this shit. Nintendo knows where they fit. They make games, they're hella fun, they're hella addicting, and they have gameplay systems that for the longest time, the smartest developers out there that aren't Nintendo have yet to figure out with regards to things like, I don't know, 2D platforming and 3D platforming. So they understand the niche that they have. I'm pretty sure they know they could probably kill a PlayStation 5 launch just by having Zelda launch. I'm pretty sure they don't want to rush the game though. But that's something that they know what their fan base is, and they know how to make it happen. They saw how much Breath of the Wild sold. They saw how much Super Mario Odyssey sold. They see how much Mario Kart 8 continues to sell. They're still selling original Mario Kart 8 units for Wii U. Still $60 a pop. So it's not a lack of foresight. Nintendo has production issues. They are a smaller company than any of the other first parties that they're dealing with. Even though those first parties, they don't really develop games like that. They just hire people to make games for them. Nintendo's only one company. There's only so much they can do. They have subsidiaries and whatnot, but they still have to oversee everything they do. They're just not going to greenlight it and publish it. So I get the anger and the stress. But none of my comments, I don't know about anybody else's comments. I'm not going to speak for anybody else or in defense for anybody else. None of mine were directed at fans. Just directed upon the reality and people that depend upon this news. Because at the same point in time, if you're thirsting for this news so bad and you need a Nintendo director to cover that bad, then also complain about how there's been little to no news from two other companies, from Microsoft and Sony, that have two brand new consoles coming pretty soon. And we know basically nothing. The Xbox Series X, which I'll cover in a video pretty soon here. Everything that they revealed about it is everything that was already talked about before. And people were jumping up and down as if it's brand new information, and it's not. What I don't get is the lack of balance with regards to fervor and comparatively having vitriol or some type of outrage, selective outrage, if you will, what it is now, regarding all three of these companies. If I didn't actively search, I would never find out much about PlayStation games unless I'm watching ESPN, and then I'll see a commercial maybe. They don't do too many internet commercials for the most part anyway, unless you're targeted in their ads already. Same thing for Microsoft. Even though Microsoft has a very big deal with NFL Network, if it's not football season, you're not really seeing much from them. And they'll do their Inside Xbox once a year or what have you, or they'll do XO whatever year it's going to be. X20, I guess, is going to be the next thing they do. And nobody's bitching at them saying, hey, where's your new, we need blah, 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 blah. and there's no major announcements throughout the year, Microsoft is barely a first party anymore. And that's not a talk at all. Nobody mentions that shit. Obviously, same for Sony. We want to talk as much as we can about Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us 2, but what do we really know about those games right now? And this is supposed to be the premier first party studios for, this cross-generational pair of games, PS4, and obviously they're going to be PlayStation 5 games as well. I don't really get why we can bitch about Nintendo not having online the way that they are, but not heavily bitch about how Sony and Microsoft are nowhere near the tier of first party caliber that Nintendo is, or nowhere near the tier of energy efficiency that Nintendo's consoles are, 11 watts. I just don't like the comparisons. The Overton window is always in the favor of those other platforms. It should never be a situation where let's start from the position of this one guy. They set the standard. No. What set the standard is, can the game play? Who makes the best games since those games play? How much does it require for that game to play? It never starts with that. It always starts with the Overton window shift that I call the IGN effect, because this is, for the most part, gaming press's fault. They created these norms and they programmed these minds to be this fucked up over time. Being a follower of Nintendo since 1985, I saw this happen over and over again, from Snowball in the 90s as they progressed to being IGN Entertainment, and the same thing for GameSpot around the same time frame. Basically, these fans became journalists and they became jaded over time, and they started developing preferences, and they pressed those preferences across the followers and the readers of their media over decades. And what does that create? A bunch of sheep that think the exact same way, and they don't want to think outside the box. And it's so frustrating to me, because I know all of these consoles are embedded PCs. They're embedded computers. They're ASICs with software on them. The software just happens to be a game. It's nothing special at the end of the day. And then I hear all these fucked up buzzwords, coming from Microsoft and Sony and the like. And we're talking about SSDs and stuff, and talking about how we're going to have infinite load times and whatnot, when we know that is physically impossible. That cannot be the case. RAM is always the fastest buffer of memory that you have in a subsystem. Less than cache, obviously, but RAM is the persistent, fastest amount of storage that you have in a subsystem. No matter how fast SSD is, it is still significantly slower than anything that happens in main memory while a game runs. And all you're doing is buffering the time that it takes for the memory to load anyway. If you want true seamless worlds, you want a console with a shitload of RAM. That's the answer to the situation. But that's it. I'm going to stop with my technical jargon, because I was going on to a whole nother situation there. But no, this is just my rant for today. I figured I'd do, I guess it's kind of like a half video response to Mr. T and a couple other YouTubers out there. I saw like Super Metal Dave and a couple other guys going back and forth on this whole topic here. But no, you guys let me know how it feels, because y'all let me know in the comments, because I know specifically when I make comments like this and I go ham on Twitter, I'm not really talking about y'all. Not really. Not like that. I specifically mention YouTubers. And if you are a YouTuber and you're one of my followers, as long as you're not a news tuber, you're good. But if you are, hit dog will holler. Do you play games to have fun or to impress other people?
Got to find high ground.